Hey you, are you looking for an immersive MMO? A story-rich RPG filled with endless content? Millions of active players worldwide? Well then, so am I, because this is not. Hey, what's good everyone, I'm Mog, and in this video we're gonna be taking a look at Shaiya in 2024 to see how it's doing, if it's worth playing, and just an overall review of the game. So to not waste your time, we'll be going through the most important questions first. Is this still pay to win? Yes. How pay to win is it? Yes. How much will I need to pay? Yes. Is there a lot more players now? Yes. So should you play it? As of right now, Shaiya is still somewhat similar as it was back in 2022 overall. However, one major improvement that is definitely worth noting is that the staff members of Shaiya now actually communicates and responds to the community. Back when Gamigo owned Shaiya, the community managers for Shaiya US were about as useful as fishnet condoms. Now that Fox owns Shaiya, it's actually quite great. Unless you're like me, of course, then they'll ignore you for dissing this power-tripping son of a gameplay. Shaiya is a very old game that's been nearly out for 2 decades. However, the game is still very beautiful even for today. While the overview of Shaiya looks quite good, playing the game is a complete different story. Back in the day, MMORPGs pretty much revolved around players clicking on an enemy, killing the enemy, and then looting whatever the enemy dropped, and that's what Shaiya still is. While there are some skills and abilities that can spice up your grind, Shaiya doesn't really bring much else to the table for most gamers other than nostalgia. If you're doing a quest, Shaiya is no different from other MMORPGs. It's either kill an X number of enemies, collect an X number of drops from enemies, or travel from one location to another to talk to an NPC. If you're trying to level up, you'll pretty much be killing mobs over and over for hours on end. If you're trying to make money, you'll most likely be buying cash out because Shaiya is still heavily on pay to win. Performance. When it comes to performance, Shaiya is kind of like a toaster. It works fine most of the time, but if you run into deep waters, you'll be in for a shock. Hey, nah, this is not even edited, alright? This is literally everyone in the game right now drinking potions. You can hear literally every person in-game drinking right now. While Shaiya has definitely improved since Fox took over, playing the game itself on its intended graphics settings is still pretty much non-existent. But playing on minimum low graphics settings can actually be playable and not make you feel like ripping out your own intestines to skip rope with. Yeah. The lag was that bad before. Thanks, Gamigo. So what's really performance without performance issues? When it comes to performance issues in Shaiya, some of the most noticeable would be the outdated features. Items can't be dropped for some weird reason even though it gives you the option to, random glitches and bugs, lack of splitting options, delays in sorting out your own items in warehouse, and of course constant crashes and freezes. Community. In Shaiya, when it comes to community, there's mainly 4 kinds of players: the PvPers, the farmers, the PvP farmers, and the casuals. Now most of these are pretty self-explanatory. PvPers focus on PvP, farmers focus on money making, PvP farmers being the mixture of both, and casual being everything else. But to make this even easier, the community of Shaiya can be broken down into 2 kinds of players. You got the ones who wants what's best for the game, and the ones who wants what's best for them. So how can you tell them apart? Well, the ones who wants what's best for the game will usually suggest really good ideas that will greatly benefit the community as a whole, whereas the ones who wants what's best for them, they'll just suggest and argue some of the most asinine things possible to gain an advantage for themselves. Kinda like trying to get in shape, but rather than going on a diet or exercise, they'll just suggest banning food for the whole country instead. So let's take a look at this suggestion here. Bring back invasion. So for those who don't know, Shaiya has always been a pay to win simulator. Back in the day, the number 1 most pay to win thing you can do on Shaiya is to bully newer players that are still leveling and under equipped for kill scores. Now this was already a horrible concept to begin with because the new and non-pay to win players were essentially food for the pay to win. And what makes this even worse, these selfish players are so delusional, they actually think that this will be a good way for all players to gain content. So this may not sound ridiculous to someone who's never played Shaiya, but for someone who has, this is just beyond stupid. Because they don't realize just how much players invest into leveling one character. So let's take a look. To reach max level on Shaiya on a singular character, you will need a continuous resurrection rune. Because if you're not playing an ultimate mode character, you're pretty much playing a demo of whatever class you pick. Not only do you lack stat points, you'll also be missing out on important game-changing abilities. And on top of this, you're also going to need a PID if you don't want your items robbed. And then on top of this, you're also gonna need a 5 or 10 times the XP stone, which are very expensive. So if an invasion does occur, the players leveling with all of these cash up items running will just have to go to waste because they'll just be sitting in base waiting for the PvP to end before they can go out and actually level. And if you think that's not bad enough, the worst part about these kinds of players is that they'll tell you to piss off to another game when you try to use logic on them. Progression. The progression of Shaiya as of right now is pretty much still the same. You pick a server and select a side, choose a class to customize, complete a tutorial and start your grind. But to give you a more accurate description, starting off on Shaiya, whether you pick Light or Fury, the major things for all players to do is to complete tutorial. While there are quests available, most of the early game and some endgame quests aren't really worth doing. Now that Altia's army is weaker than ever, it is our time to put an end to this. It is time to kill my sister, Altia, the Queen of the Ocean. I need to ask you this last favor. Bring together the strongest heroes that you know and defeat Altia. If you achieve this final mission, we may have saved the Earth as we know it. And so, just kill her about 50 times or so. But let's get back on topic. The early stages of Shaiya remains quite fast and smooth if you know what you're doing. From level 1 to 20, leveling is quite a breeze. Players can access new abilities, equipment, and fight different monsters. After level 20, players will be presented with quest scrolls to help them level up in different dungeons. After grinding out the dungeons and maps, players will then be placed into semi-PvP maps where they'll have to keep grinding and possibly get killed by the opposite faction with zero chance to defending themselves. And finally, once you manage to hit endgame, that's where the pay to win really begins, or better yet, pay to gear up faster for the special kind of intellectuals who will pour the milk before the cereal, and then forgetting the bowl entirely. Overall, the progression of Shaiya doesn't really give players a good incentive to grind. So Fox, if you're watching this, could you, maybe, take my suggestion and make this happen? Yeah, thanks. Anyways, let's take a look at development. When it comes to development in Shaiya, there are so many things to cover that this video would have ended up an hour long. So to not waste your time, we'll be only going through the major changes. Starting with story. The story of Shaiya is pretty straightforward. There was once a goddess who turned out to be a racist. She created 3 types of race and buried one without trace, got her ass betrayed and became two-faced. Then the buried returned and wanted to fight, became the Union of Fury and the Alliance of Light, and that's pretty much the short version of it. However, if you want to check out the long version, watch this video, link in the description. Cash off. Pay to win has always existed in Shaiya and has never been cheap. While most games can leave you satisfied with a nice $20 purchase, Shaiya is quite the opposite. Did you know cosmetics in most games are designed to make you look better? Well, in Shaiya, they're used to making you stronger. But that's not all. You got lapis to link, enchanting, bonus stats, and more. So, just how much do these cost? Well, since Fox took over Shaiya, a lot of the prices have changed, some for the better and some for the worse. To give you an idea, a singular piece of equipment can cost up to nearly a few $100s depending on their loyalty rewards. So if we were to do a rough estimate for all your equipment put together on this one character, you're looking at easily over $1,000 for you to simply compete in endgame. Population. When it comes to development of population in Shaiya, Shaiya has never been more populated on a singular server. Back when Gamigo owned Shaiya, the game was practically dead to a point where players would sometimes sit for hours to try and get PvP started just to have it cancelled due to the lack of players. However, since Fox took over, all Shaiya servers had merged where now PvP can have up to nearly 3 to 4 raids fighting at once in a gigantic 240 player brawl, which is actually quite impressive for an old game like Shaiya to have that many players fighting at once. Well, assuming it doesn't crash from the lag. Content. When it comes to content, Shaiya at this point is pretty much known for recycling. While Fox definitely made significant improvements from back when Gamigo owned Shaiya, the content now is still lacking quite a lot as majority of the releases are just recycled stuff from what they had already. Whether it's pay to win cosmetics, pay to win pets, or pay to win mounts, Shaiya doesn't really bring anything fresh to the table. See this level 80 boss? That's the old boss that was from Cryptic Throne more than a decade ago. See this creepy purple thing that follows me around? That's a monster from the Void who's shrunken down to be my pet. See this map called the Void? That's just a desert painted purple. So while Shaiya has changed for the better since Fox took over, the overall state of Shaiya is still on the bad side of all its common issues. Whether it's the community issues of players excluding other players, highly suggested posts being ignored, quality of life inconveniences that's purposely in place to milk more money, Shaiya is still not really worth playing, especially for new players. Even as a seasoned veteran like myself who's been on and off since 2008, Shaiya is still extremely expensive to keep up with. So should you play Shaiya? As of right now, it will still be a no, but at least it's better than when Gamigo owned it.